Welcome, dear viewers of Mpuma Kapa once again in our regular Tuesday program. This is a collaborative effort between Amaqhawe Ethu Foundation and Mpuma Kapa Television. Amaqhawe Ethu Foundation is an entity whose defined objective is to honor our struggle heroes and heroines. We consider both those that are living and those that have departed. Today, dear viewers, we are honoring one of our own, a very dear comrade to us. His name is Sindile Mfazi. We will hear about his untimely death in the process of this program we're doing right now. We had an opportunity to talk to a colleague and a comrade of his. His name is Zola Mtatsi. He worked with Sindile Mfazi late in the 70s and early 80s until Sindile Mfazi decided to pursue the struggle in other means, meaning that he went abroad and joined Umkhonto weSizwe to fight for the freedom that we now enjoy. We are very fortunate again because we are joined by Sindile's brother, who is an advocate. His name is Lindela Mfazi. We're going to talk and retrace the footsteps of this comrade, Sindile Mfazi, up until now. We were told at the time of his burial, that was 2021, that he died of COVID. Because we've been reading the newspapers, we've been watching the television screens, now we are told Sindile Mfazi was poisoned. Very, very heartbroken. We're very, very disappointed. We're very, very saddened. Because if indeed it's poison that killed Sindile, we know Sindile did not ingest that poison to himself for three basic reasons. That one, Sindile loved life. Sindile loved his family. Sindile loved his job. Sindile loved his children. There is no way he would have taken his own life. The question is, who did that? Who is responsible? At this point in time, Mr. President, we are looking your direction to help us, his comrades and the family, to get to the bottom of this, to establish indeed what happened to Sindile. We are looking in your direction, National Commissioner, to assist the family and his comrades. IPID, we are looking your direction. You see, in South Africa, in 2023, those were the stats. We were told the South African police has over 179,000 officers. And in that number, Lieutenant General Sindile, I think, was number 4 in the top management. It was the minister, deputy minister, national commissioner, and Sindile. And the rest of these 502,000 officers, all of them were subordinated to him. So naturally, it tells us, once the general is poisoned, everybody must panic and try and investigate. Welcome, Mr. Zola Mtatsi, in the program.
Yes, Nkosi Dibela, ndiyabulisa kuwe kunye nabaphulaphuli beMpuma Kapa TV kanye ababukeli be-TV leyo.
I thank you very much, Mr. Zolamtadzi. Let's extend a warm welcome as well to Mr. Lindela Mfazi, the advocate who is the brother to Sindile. Welcome, Advocate Mfazi.
Greetings to the viewers, and I thank you for this invitation. It's truly humbling to realize that the role of Usindile was not in vain. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Before we begin with our engagement, we wish to extend our acknowledgement and our gratitude to the viewers as well, because they allowed us into their sitting rooms. I will invite you, my dear viewers, as well as you, the guests, to check this video. This video seeks to depict the life and times of Sindile. And then after this, we will go for a break. And after the break, we will talk. For now, sit back, relax, and watch the life and times of Sindile. And shortly after that, we are going for the break. I thank you.
Christopher Mfazi, cadre of the oldest African movement. Sindile Christopher Mfazi, son of the late Tatumteteleli Hubert and Laukazi Deborah Mfazi, was born on the 5th of May in 1962, Kwatsolo in East London, and he was the 6th of the 7 children. Nanyi, as he was affectionately called, attended his foundation phase of his schooling at Dumisa Lower Primary, Gobani Higher Primary, and later Ethu Senior Secondary. When his age mates were busy and excited with boxing, Comrade Pitso was attracted to politics. Nanyi's first political orientation was in 1979 during the formation of COSAS. Thanks to the ANC veterans, the tried and tested cadres of the movement around Mdantsane, like Papa Joe, Tatumkyanti Msaule, and Obabu Solwandle, most of them who were banished in Mdantsane and unknowingly to the South African apartheid regime, were breeding a vibrant underground terrain for the ANC rebirth and renewal. The continued interaction with these ANC veterans assisted a great deal in shaping and positioning Comrade Pitso in acquiring an old age tradition of the ANC discipline. Because of his continued harassment by the security branch, he discontinued his schooling after passing Standard 9 in 1981, for the schools became the hunting ground of the security branch, as they could not find Pitso at home. Around January in 1982, during one of his many political rounds in Port Elizabeth, which was his regular exercise, Pitso, who was only 19 years old at the time, had his first encounter with the notorious gang of the Sanlam Security Branch Police, Abotungata, Duplessis, Smuts, Harting, Nivout, and Rulofse. He was one of the comrades rounded by the security branch at Sispinki and Tatunkanunu's house in Masangwane in New Brighton, together with several of his Port Elizabeth comrades. This arrest coincided with a very successful workers' strike at Wilson Roundtree in East London. During the processing of these comrades at the Sanlam Notorious SB offices, the system detected that 2 comrades were from Uitenhage and East London, something that really infuriated the security police. They were not impressed that the 2 comrades were not from Port Elizabeth. As a result, they got the lion's share of the beating that night and were accused of trying to mobilize the workers in Port Elizabeth to embark on solidarity strike. The beating started around 6 o'clock in the evening and went on until the early hours of the morning. At dawn, they were releasing these comrades. The time was around 1 a.m. They noticed that the police assigned to drive them home was driving towards Grahamstown instead of KwaZakhele. At the hiking spot near Grahamstown off-ramp after passing Carbon Black Factory, the police told Pitso to disembark from the car and start to hike back to Mdantsane and never come back to Port Elizabeth again. The rest of the comrades got out of the police van as they were not prepared to abandon Pitso at the hiking spot at that time. At this point, the police ordered all of them to get back on the van, including Comrade Pitso. All the comrades were dropped at KwaZakhele near Moscow. Again, Pitso and Mnyamezeli Boy were told never to come back to Port Elizabeth. Because he was a stubborn fighter, Pitso continued his stay in Port Elizabeth and interacted with the COSAS comrades and its president, Comrade Wantu Zenzile, who was in Port Elizabeth at the time. During this period, Pitso was a COSAS leader and a link between Port Elizabeth and the former Ciskei. Because of the addictive nature of the struggle, Comrade Pitso graduated from the student politics and started getting involved in the underground activities of the ANC, a fact we got to know much later. That again attracted the attention of the security branch, even though he was never detected. The security police raided Comrade Pitso's home frequently, as if they knew that he had graduated from the student politics to even bigger things. Because he was well trained even at that early age, Pitso was very disciplined and outwitted the system. By this time, Pitso had mastered the art of military combat work long before he did its formal training, thanks to comrades like Charles Nqakula and Papa Joe, who orientated him in these military combat tactics and techniques. The senior comrades detected that the circle was closing. They instructed Pitso to pursue the politics by other means. Comrade Pitso then left for exile to join MK in 1984. He completed his basic military training in Kakulama, Angola in 1985. After the training, he was deployed in Pango to train and prepare MK cadres assigned to infiltrate South Africa. This was the time of intense skirmishes in Angola. Savimbi bandits assisted the racist South African army against the formidable MK, MPLA, and the Cuban forces. Many books talk of how the enemy forces were annihilated during these military engagements and maneuvers. Once again, those who shared the trenches with Comrade Pitso during these skirmishes will testify about his bravery and his commanding abilities. He consistently led from the front. He demonstrated good qualities of a very good tactician. Every mission entrusted to Comrade Pitso by the ANC and MK, rest assured, it was executed diligently and with distinction. In 1987, Comrade Pitso was sent to Cuba for the specialization course in weaponry and tactics. After this program, Pitso was off to Tanzania for Commandos military training in 1988. He then joined the Department of Intelligence and Security, becoming the head of the department in the ANC camp in Tanzania. In all tasks he was assigned in exile, Comrade Pitso continued to excel, and once again, this attracted the attention of the South African Communist Party. At some point, Comrade Pitso was responsible for the safety of Babu Moses Mabhida, the leader of the African National Congress and the South African Communist Party. During this period, Pitso worked very closely with Comrade Chris Hani, a Communist Party member himself. When Pitso came back from exile, he was deployed as a protector for the then Secretary General of the South African Communist Party, Comrade Charles Nqakula. It was during this period when his elder sister, who was a teacher at the time, encouraged him to complete his matric, which he did in 1993. 10 years down the line, Pitso met and fell in love with Malindi in 2003. They got married on the 16th of December 2010, and their marriage was blessed with two beautiful boys, Gugulethu and Luto. The way this relationship started blossoming is a good script for a bestseller, but this is a story for another day. Pastor Dituksu, who married them 11 years ago, meant it when he said, "Till death do them part." Today, Pastor Dituksu is here, performing Pitso's final rites. Comrade Pitso never looked back in the direction of acquiring academically. He completed an advanced project management diploma and a project management qualification. His studies were disrupted by his untimely passing. In 1994, he was deployed in the Eastern Cape and joined the management of the VIP unit in 1996. During this period, he worked very closely with Umre, the Eastern Cape Premier at the time, and this deployment continued until he amalgamated into South African Police Service Criminal Intelligence in 1998. The irony of it all is that Comrade Pitso eventually became the manager of his tormentors in the post-apartheid South Africa, and at no stage did he remind them of his personal encounters, characterized by his systematic beatings and torture. Comrade Sindile Mfazi started being noticed in the police service, as Comrade Mbalula amply postulated in his well-penned tribute entitled Radio Call. He would know this because he was his minister. Comrade Mbalula says in his tribute, quote, Pitso became an exemplary figure in the rank and file of the police, close quote. From the physical front lines of combating crime and keeping South Africans safe, he was indeed a reliable officer. Before his appointment as the Deputy National Commissioner, an appointment Comrade Fikile Mbalula supported as his minister, Comrade Pitso led the crime intelligence in the Eastern Cape with distinction. Because of the gang-related crimes in the Western Cape, his arrow pointed in that province, and he did well in turning around the province dramatically until his promotion to the office of the National Deputy Commissioner, the responsibility he assumed from 2019 until his untimely demise on the 8th of July 2021. Those who worked closely with him will tell of how his immediate supervisor, National Commissioner Kehla Sithole, and those who reported to him will certainly miss him. Comrade Sindile always knew it was nice to be important, but he believed it was more important to be nice. He always surrounded himself with ordinary men and women, something that puzzled many, given his power and authority that never got into his head. He remained humble until his last breath, a mere mortal that left behind immortal memories because of his work. This is the portrait of an MK cadre, a patriot who authored his life in service to nationhood, spurred by integrity, in the quest to contribute towards the making of the greater South Africa. A direct response from a call by one of greatest educators and a legal guru, Horace Mann, who is known by many of his profound quotations, such as, quote, be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity, close quote. Until he was recalled to the world beyond the skies and our horizon, Comrade Pitso subscribed to this mantra. So many families across South Africa have breadwinners today, thanks to General Mfazi. He has won so many victories. His passing has robbed the multitudes of South Africans. Like dominoes, their dreams will drop and become dim. The void by his untimely demise will be difficult to fill. It is to tell the truth when we say, Comrade Pitso leaves behind a record in our struggle and renewal program, which will be surpassed by few. He was certainly a seasoned cadre of outstanding qualities. To say his death has struck our government and the ANC a blow is no exaggeration. We will certainly miss his jokes, laughter, and his seriousness at the same time. General Mulangi Mpejo summarized General Sindile Mfazi so appropriately.
My very first face-to-face encounter with Pitso was here at home around 1993. This was at a time that I was in charge of a small ordnance operation around the Braamfontein area that many of our operations had come to rely on. It was not a good meeting at all. I had earlier on received instructions from the late Comrade Africa Kumalo to expect Pitso at my barber shop, as it were. When Pitso eventually arrived, the fellow just flatly refused to be verified through our normal vetting protocols that we had developed in an attempt to minimize our vulnerability to the ever-roving eye of the security branch. His bravado loomed large. His barking in Vernex still echo loud in my ears to this day. Chin, Ikodian, Ndingupitso. Who are you, comrade? Kutheni ungandazi? Of course, I retaliated with my own bout of bravado, openly declaring that he was not getting anything from my barber shop unless he complied. After all, I thought, who did this short man think he was to come to my sector and dare embarrass me in front of my two croissants who were part of the ordnance machinery? Well, as you may suspect, I was wrong, and indeed I eventually lost the round to Pitso when suddenly I received a message from Africa to the effect that Comrade Lucky McGee was threatening to strangle our supply line because I was not acceding to Pitso's demand, a situation that we could ill afford at the time. So Pitso won the day, got his tools, and made sure to rub the incident in my eyes so that, as he put it, I shouldn't forget who he was. This intense encounter with Pitso was the very first time I met and experienced not only the sheer arrogance of Pitso, but the unwavering determination of a man who will do whatever it takes to accomplish his mission. This was indeed the moment that our hearts began to beat as one, and Comrade Pitso would later on become my pillar of strength in the subsequent deployments that brought us even closer to each other. A relationship that was suddenly interrupted by the sudden and unexpected events of Thursday the 8th of July, a day in which I lost part of myself. Go well, Guerrilla Lomkhonto. Go well, my brother.
Comrade Sindile Mfazi literally fell on his post. Few hours from one of his Western Cape missions, his spear just dropped down in the middle of the battle to rid our beautiful country of corruption, general crime, and lawlessness, things that he detested the most. If we really acknowledge and noticed his footprints, picking up his fallen spear will be the logical thing to do. That will be the best send-off that he will embrace even beyond the skies. Because he was a communist, Comrade Pitso knew that life continues even after one's death. To the generals, NASCOM, Deputy Minister and our Minister, Comrade Pitso expects nothing less. Let us join the President in his quest of building a crime-free South Africa with a better life for all. Our prayers are with his family. It is going to be difficult for his wife to comprehend Pitso's exit. No one can ever understand that sudden transition. As Africans, we usually trust in the ritual of closing the eyes of our dead and believe that it is an opportunity to have ours opened by the departed souls. COVID has deprived our sister Malindi to perform this ritual. Sindile loved his family. This may sound like a cliche, but to him, it was second nature, breathing being his first. Comrade Sindile Christopher Mfazi is survived by his wife Nomisumzi, affectionately called Malindi by his late husband, 2 sons Guguletu and Luto, 2 sisters Nontembiso and Lulama, his brother Ntsikelelo, and many nephews and nieces. Hamba kahle, livulekile izulu nozulu. Sizivile izinqi zakho, ndlebenhle zombini mchumane. Uwile umthomkhulu Cocobe. Sibamba ngazo zozibini mpafane. Rest in peace, Pitso. Go well, Guerrilla Lomkhonto, beloved son, husband, father, uncle, comrade, sibali, friend, colleague, leader. Amandla.
Thank you very much, dear viewers. After this video, I would like to ask you, Mr. Mtadzi, what is going through you right now after having viewed this video?
Okay, Mr. Glass, I've got a feeling of emptiness. I feel as if part of me is gone. This reminds me of one of our finest comrade, friend, and a brother. Sindile was literally everything to us. And now watching this video brings all those memories of the past. Having met him around 70s. We met in East London.
Mr. Mtadzi, I'm very sorry for interrupting you. I'm told we must pay for the rent. Remember, we paid the rent. Now let's take a very quick break, and then after that, you will continue with where you left. Dear viewers, on that note, let's go very quickly to our break and we'll come back to you. I thank you. Welcome back, dear viewers. In the second segment and the last segment of our program, in honor of Sindile Pitso-Mfazi, Mr. Zola Mtadzi was still trying to paint a picture how the video has impacted on him. Mr. Mtadzi, can you please take us through once again, after viewing this video, what is going through your mind?
Mr. Klaas, the feeling is so bad and heavy in my heart. There's a feeling of emptiness. I feel like I'm empty. I feel there's nothing in me having viewed this video. The feeling is we've been robbed. We've been robbed of a beautiful soul, a true liberator, a servant of the people, a father to his children, a child to his parents, a husband to his wife, a liberator, obviously, to the people of South Africa and South Africa itself. A man who was given everything literally, for the attainment of our liberation. The question that goes through my mind, having heard that it has been confirmed that the man was poisoned. The question that comes is, who did it to Ethu? Who are these people who can do this to a man like Sindile Christopher Pitso-Mfazi? What could be their aim of doing it? Who are these faceless creatures that are sick-minded, who take and rob South Africans of one of the finest servants of the people, the true public representative from the departments where he served, a man who by brick and brick build this new democracy that we're enjoying. And someone somewhere comes and takes his life. I'm saying to Vela, yes, they've taken his life. They've cut it short. Because he could have not done that, knowing him as a brave man, as a man who knew that he had a duty to liberate the people, of which he played a very prominent role. And after the attainment of that democracy, he swore to build it and entrench that democracy so that we as people of South Africa can enjoy our democracy and transition. And now the feeling is, Tivela, really hard to explain. I'm in loss of words to exactly explain how we feel about it. Because initially there was no clarity. It was a maybe poisoned, maybe not poisoned. But now it has come out clearly that some faceless people sat in a particular dark corner, somewhere within the boundaries of our country, in a particular seat, in a particular street, in a particular office, to connive and plan to eliminate Sindile, our dear brother, our dear friend, our dear comrade, is now no more.
Yeah.
We're having something that says we must not rest. Those people must be hunted down and brought to book. Yes, Divela, we shall not rest. And we're calling upon everybody, anybody who might have a clue as to what happened to Comrade Peter to come forward and assist and make the process of investigation easier for us, easier for the working class, easier for the poor, easier for the Democrats, easier for literally everybody in the country. Because Peter did not give his life to be lost this funny way. Because I know, and many people who have come across Peter know him, how he valued his life. And he wanted to live longer so that he could give more to the people of South Africa, people of Africa, and the people of the world.
Wow.
Now here we are, struggling to hold back tears because of the heavy loss. South Africa is truly Kwara without Peter. I can imagine the pain going through his wife, his beautiful wife, his kids, his relatives, and the family broadly. If we can feel this way, how do they feel about it?
Talking about his life, his wife, his relatives, Mr. Mtatsi. We have his brother, Lindela Mfazi. He's going to share with us what has been going through Sindile's family. We know Sindile was somebody's son. Sindile was somebody's father. Sindile was somebody's brother. Today, Sindile is somebody's victim. Now we're going to ask his brother, who's an advocate, to tell us how he has been coping, how the wife and the children have been coping with this loss. Advocate, please share with the South Africans how the family has been coping because of this loss of their father, of their husband, of their brother.
Thank you for the opportunity. I wonder if you can hear me clearly now.
Yes, we can, advocate, yes.
Thank you. If I may take this opportunity to thank South Africa for giving us this opportunity to voice our heartfelt pain as we go through this drama that we know was man-made, and it was orchestrated by some people, as the previous speaker had said, that in some dark corners, how it has impacted on the family of Sindile. First and foremost, I would say that as a family, this, you would recall, happened during the time of COVID, where it was very easy for anyone dying under any circumstances to be associated with COVID at the time. And this was exactly what happened with the death of General Sindile Mfazi. Within less than 48 hours of the family knowing about the untimely passing of Sindile, there was a rush, a concerted effort to lay him to rest. So much was done within such a short period of time. And the tragic part was when the wife was torn apart by the sudden passing of the husband. It dawned on her that, hey, chaps, let us talk to these guys. We need to know. We need a post-mortem. We need to know what could have killed my husband. But lo and behold, as things were at the time, everybody had already concluded that it is COVID. I would say it was just by the grace of God that through those tears, through that struggle, there was a voice that still echoed in the heart of Sindile's wife that, hey, we can't leave this lying. Let us go and organize a post-mortem. And it is now common cause that the body of Sindile was exhumed and the necessary tests were done by the experts, especially with regard to the cause of death. And as the previous speaker had said, that we all know now that COVID was ruled out of the equation. But perhaps the most saddening part to us as a family, and perhaps more so to the wife and the children, is to have the third in command within the police, the death of the third in command within the police, to be treated the way it was handled, and to be handled with, how can I put it? For the third in command to die, and for the family to take the means that it took to rule out COVID, and yet to be where we are today, that is perhaps the most saddening part. But also, it sort of gives clarity to why we are where we are today. During the memorial of Sindile, I did say that legends never die. And the opportunity now for us as a family to perhaps go and knock at the door of the commission brings about hope where hope was almost lost. It was so sad to find a situation where children, especially the elder son, was seeking answers for his father, and he was lamenting, knowing how his father would have handled the death of a hero such as his father, and yet nothing was being treated as seriously as we would have loved. It appeared as if we, as the family, were trying to seek exclusionary treatment that any other person would, under normal circumstances, not have been privileged to receive. But we are talking here about, the third in command within the police. And it was really heartbreaking for us not to be favored with the answers when we needed the most. And I'm speaking for myself, but knowing fully well what we had to go through with the wife during those periods, including to be investigated as perpetrators and giving all, the opportunity for the police to do their work without fear or favor. But we still find ourselves in this situation where, knowing fully well that your very own did not die through natural means, and being a general within the police, yet the investigation, after so many years, has not yielded any result. But we are seeking solace in knowing that God is the one who will leave whatever was hidden to be out there in the open for all to see what our father, our brother, our cousin had gone through the hands of those who thought that they could do and get away with murder without accounting for the lives lost. And perhaps in conclusion, speaking for the eldest son, I hope that wherever he is, one day he will find closure, because it was so deeply hurting to know that your father did not die because of natural death, and yet no one was there to speak for him, to investigate for him, to even, have the luxury of knowing how far the investigation is, if it was dragging, why it was dragging, if it was, in the process of being investigated, what, the National Prosecuting Authority had decided to do, whether they are prosecuting or whether they've identified people or not. And yet seeing those who were very close to Pitso suddenly getting positions of power without an explanation. Those that he had investigated, perhaps, even though it was the prerogative of the police to not disclose or to disclose, but we are now almost 4 years, and there's been such quietness. No reporting to the family, no reporting to the wife. And yet when the investigation started, there was so much drama, so many theories, so many police wanted to be involved. But yet the quietness, after just a few years, spoke volumes. That is the painful part of this whole death for the family, and perhaps even most, painful for the wife and the children.
Okay, thank you very much, Advocate. The irony of this, you see, Sindile lost a friend and a comrade. His name is Sipho Mthimkhulu. He was poisoned by apartheid South Africa, by the Boers. That was to be expected. But we never expected 27 years within our liberation, we can have one of our own being poisoned. The question is, in the interest of fairness, justice, and closure, to the friends, families, and comrades, what should be done now going forward? Please, we have about 7 minutes. I would like 2 of you to give an input to what you think should happen going forward. Now that we know his breath was not squeezed, or COVID did not squeeze his last breath, but poison did. What should happen now? Let me start with you, Advocate.
I will be brief. Justice should be done, and justice should be seen to be done. And the powers that be should really use this opportunity, including the opportunity to approach the Commission in order to bring to light those who could have had a hand in the passing of Sindile. And that's all I'm going to say. We just want justice.
Thank you, Advocate. Zola Ntatsi, what do you think should happen now that you know? Just like Sprom Tim Kulu, Sindile was poisoned. But the irony here, Sindile was not poisoned by apartheid South Africa. We want to believe he was poisoned by the people who paraded as his friends, because it takes someone closer to you to do that. What do you think should happen?
Mr. Glass, I think no stone must be left unturned in trying to find the true facts behind the death of Comrade Pitso. We should not allow Pitso to go right to the back of our memories. Those who did it to Pitso must know that that was only the beginning. They are going to be exposed, and they must be exposed, named and shamed. We must not allow Pitso's deed to die with him. Pitso must be kept alive in the minds of the people of South Africa, Africa, and the world. The world must know that there was a man like this, and his memory must be kept alive. We're calling upon those in power who've got authority to lead these investigations, to do it faster, to do it with haste, to make it a point that answers are given to his children. Answers are given to his dear wife, to his aunts, to his uncles, to all who are related to him. But also, we, the people of South Africa, deserve to know what happened to Pitso. And as I said earlier, they must be brought to book. Zinguka ezambethe ufelelwe gusha ezi. Ayingobantu bakude kuPitso abenze esisehlo. The only people who could do this, Vanji, to Pitso are the counter-revolutionaries. People who are unpatriotic. People who did not want to see any progress in terms of deepening the roots of democracy in our country. The people who are anti-ukupheliswa kobundlobongela phakathi kwethu. Because Pitso was a man who never belittled his oath. When he took an oath, he took the oath and he wanted to live by it. But some satanic individuals decided to deny him that opportunity. We must not rest until all those people are brought to book and they face the consequences of their deeds. South Africa must not rest. We must demand justice for Pitso. We should make a bigger noise since his death, and it must start now. Now is the time to make those people who did it to Pitso not to have rest. They must not sleep. Pitso must be watching them wherever they are. ekuphileni kwabo, ekulaleni kwabo, ekusebenzini kwabo. You must be there. Thank you, Duvela.
I thank you very much. On that note, we have come to the end of our program. We wish to extend our gratefulness to the television station, to Amaqhawe Ethu, to the family, for really allowing us to honor our leader, Upitso. I leave you with a quotation by Horace Mann. He says, refuse to die until you have gifted your community with the gift of life. Pitso has done that. What are we going to do for him? For now, let's make a date again next week, same time, on the same channel, when we bring you another program. It's good night from me.